6. All right. So yesterday we were looking at the idea of addition and subtraction. As far as an inequality to an equation is concerned, there's absolutely no difference between the two. Multiplication and division, however, there is one difference we have to be aware of. Any idea on what that issue is? Yesterday, as long as we added or subtracted the exact same amount, the inequalities were still in the same relationship. If Charlotte had $10 and Brooke had 7 and I gave each of them 5, Charlotte still has more because she started with more. Right? Multiplication and division, however, there's one thing we got to be aware of. And it deals with a negative. What's going to happen if you multiply or divide by a negative number? Let's just take two numbers. So Charlotte has 8 and Han has 5. Who has more right now? Charlotte does. If I multiply them each by 2, who has more? Charlotte does. Her 8 turns into 16. Han's 5 turns into 10. 16 is still bigger than 10. However, if we take those two numbers, 8 and 5, so Charlotte has 8, Han had 5, 8 is greater than 5, but if I multiply them by a negative 2 instead of a positive 2, Charlotte now has negative 16 and Han has negative 10. Who's bigger now? Han is. Why? Okay, negative 10 is greater than negative 16. Negative 10 is closer to what? It's closer to 0. In the negative world, we almost view those numbers backwards, right? As far as which one is bigger or which one is smaller. Okay, so when I multiply by a negative number, or if I divide by a negative number, I have to account for that by turning my sign the other direction. So, for example, right now, because Han's negative 10 is greater than Charlotte's negative 16, my sign would have to turn around. But if I divided by or multiplied, let's multiply by a negative 4. Can you tell me what negative 16 times negative 4 is? How about, well, if it's two negatives together. Okay, so if I multiplied negative 16 by negative 4, it would turn into a positive 64. If I multiplied Han's negative 10 by negative 4, it would turn into a positive 40. And now again, 64 becomes bigger than 40, so my sign has to change again. Okay, but notice something about what's being created down both of these columns. If you look at the absolute value, 8's bigger than 5, 16's bigger than 10, 64 is bigger than 40. The left side has been bigger than the right the entire time. However, when we move into the negative world, the quote bigger number isn't bigger anymore. You follow me on that idea? It's now actually the smaller number because it's further away from 0. So we have to account for this happening by changing our sign. James, you with me on that? You're not sure if you're with me on that? Okay. Well, so that's going to be something we have to focus on today as we go through this. The math isn't going to be difficult. We know how to solve equations, so therefore we know how to solve inequalities. We just have to be mindful of this as we go through it today. Okay, so those are things that we're going to kind of keep an eye out for. It shouldn't take us a ton of time to go through this. There's only a couple of examples we're going to look at. Okay, so we'll look at multiplication and then we'll look at division. So those are going to be our two goals. Dating back to yesterday, I don't know why this is here. There we go. If we go back to yesterday and we just dealt with addition and subtraction, which one of those would be the correct response? Hunter, which one do you think it is? You think it's D? When you first looked at that problem, did you eliminate some choices right off the bat? And it's okay if you say no. Like, don't feel like, oh, geez, I didn't think that way. Like, when I looked at this and I saw a greater than symbol, I immediately removed I remove C. Like it was going to the left. That's a less than. I immediately remove that. Okay, and then obviously once I move this to the side and see that it has to be an 8, obviously it can't be A or B, so it's got to be D. Okay, so that's just kind of how my thought process went there. So 2 goals: multiplication and division. All right, this looks kind of crazy, but this is the breakdown for. I tried to squeeze them on the same one. I might have got a little distorted there. Can you read that from Becker? Faith, can you see that at all? That's kind of my fear. All right. So if we multiply or divide by something that's positive, the relationship stays true, just like it did in addition and subtraction. But if we multiply or divide by a negative number, that's what it says down here at the bottom. If I multiply by a negative or if I divide by a negative, I've got to turn that inequality sign around. Okay. I have to flip it in order to keep the relationship true. And we kind of talked about that over here in the relationship between Charlotte and Han. All right. So that's kind of what we're thinking about. All right. So everybody loves words. So as you read this, this will be part of like kind of what your homework's going to look like tonight. Mateo's walking at a rate of 3/4 of a mile per hour. That's crazy slow, just so we're clear. 3/4 of a mile. That's 3 trips around the track in an hour. I don't think you walk. Actually, I think you crawl to do that. Okay. 3/4 of a mile per hour. He knows it's at least 9 miles to get to Onyx Lake. So he should be there by Saturday at this point. Yeah. Okay. How long is it going to take Mateo to get there? Dude better figure out a different way because this isn't working out real well. Okay. It's at least 9 miles to get there. Should your answer be bigger than 9 or smaller than 9? How do you know that? Okay. Yeah. So if he's walking 1 mile an hour, it take him nine hours to get there. He's walking less than that. So your answer's got to be greater than that. What would the inequality look like here? What would you write? He's walking at a rate of 3/4 of a mile per hour. It's going to take him at least 9 miles to get there. Okay. So we're thinking 3/4 x is less than or equal to 9. Did I hear you correctly? Okay. I don't 100% agree with what you have here. I make one little change. And it has to do with this statement right here. Yeah. If it's going to be at least something, then we're going to have to look at this part there as a greater than or equal to statement. Okay. Now to solve that, how do I solve it? Like this shouldn't be crazy. James, what am I going to do to solve that? Okay. So I could divide both sides by 3/4. I'll be honest with you though. That's not really real. Dividing by fractions. You all remember the phrase keep, change, flip, because you can't divide by a fraction. You actually multiply by the what? By the reciprocal. Okay. Now my calculator will perform this, okay, because it has an algorithm in it to do so, but it's not real. You can't split something into 3/4 of a group. What answer do you come up with though if you follow this through? Patriotic shirt back there. What do you get? 12. Okay. I'm glad you knew I was talking about you. So if those cancel and I get left with an x, and 9 divided by 3/4 gives me a result of 12, do I keep that symbol as it is or should I flip it around? I keep it. How come? Okay. If I don't multiply or divide by a negative number, then I don't change that sign. So if I was going to graph that over there on the right, obviously I would go with an 11, a 12, and a 13. Should I have an open circle or a closed circle? And should it point to the right for things that are bigger, or should it point to the left for things that are smaller? Lexus, what do you think? To the right. Cody, if I read that correctly, you used your arm to point the direction and your fist to imply a closed circle. Okay, that's really ridiculous, but the fact that I read it may be even worse than that. Okay. I look back here and this is what I see. So if it was an open circle, how would you have done that? Ha! All right. Got it. We'll make sure we take a mental note of that for next. All right. Try this one, and then we're going to move to the next idea. So take a second. Hopefully your answer matches one of those four. If it doesn't, try again. It's a nice way of saying it. Emily, did you write that pass yet? That's a factual statement. You're coming eighth grade. You're judging now? You want to come up here and retake your test, and then you're talking smack about my signature? Man, I'm telling you, you're going to be in the same boat Cody's in. You're going to get banned. That's what's going to happen. I tell you. Kelsey, you stir in the pot. You're still working? All right. Two-thirds of the junior class attended the dance. There were no more than 200 juniors at the dance. No more than. Could there be 200? So then it's got to be less than or equal to. Two-thirds of the junior class attended the dance. So two-thirds of the juniors were there. There were no more than 200. So you should have a statement that looks like that. Just based off the fact that my answer currently says less than or equal to 200, I'd safely have to assume that my answer can't involve a 200. So is it A or is it B? Faith, it is B. Which one? B? Well, at this point, the only difference between the two is that A says less than or equal to and B says greater than or equal to. My sign is currently a less than or equal to. Is my sign going to change here? Why not? Okay, so I'm not dividing by a negative number, so therefore my sign is not going to change. So you could either divide by 2/3 or you could multiply by the reciprocal, which would be 3/2. But your answer should be choice A. Okay, so open circle or closed circle, pointing left or pointing right? Kelsey, what do you think? Okay. So closed circle pointing to the, oh my gosh, I can't stand all of you. Oh, that's insane. I wish this video had, or audio had video to see that right there. Oh golly. All right. So for all you YouTube followers out there, that was 8 people all doing the Cody Tackett right there. Had a closed fist and an arm pointing to the left. All 8 of those followers out there. All right. I know. No. Then we're getting closer to 100, and then Faith's going to join. She's going to be the 100th. All right. What is what? Oh, come on. It's just Andrew Coughlin. Shout out to myself right there. You can. What am I supposed to say? No, not you. Like, subscribe, or comment below. There it is. That's what you got to say. That's the catchphrase you got to put in there. All right. These two problems are similar. However, one of them involves a sign change and one of them does not. Yeah, which one? Oh. That one. In the world here, we use lefts and rights. Okay. Why does the left one involve a sign change but the right one does not? They both have a negative in them. They both will have one negative and one positive. Okay, so the rule says that if I'm going to multiply or divide by a negative number, I need to change my sign. In the right-hand side, you're either multiplying or dividing by what? Not a negative number. You're multiplying or dividing either by dividing by a third or multiplying by 3. Either way, that is not required to change your sign in that case. But on the left-hand side, you're multiplying by the reciprocal, which is negative 5/3, or you're dividing by 3/5. Because you multiply or divide by a negative, you must change your sign. Okay? If I did not do that here, okay, if I left it like it was, and I did this by the reciprocal, negative 5/3, okay, that all cancels. I would get D over here. I would get, that's negative 30 divided by 3, so negative 10. If I leave the sign the way it is, it says that I must have an answer that's less than negative 10. Give me something that's less than negative 10. Negative 11. Take your calculator for a second. So if I had negative 11, negative 10, and negative 9, right now, if I don't change the sign, it goes in that direction. Take your calculator, take negative 11, and multiply it by negative 3/5. What is negative 11 times negative 3/5? It is positive 6 3/5. Remember, though, up here, originally, this statement here is supposed to be less than 6. Well, is positive 6 3/5 less than 6? And the answer is no. Now, if I come back down here for a second and I take this and I turn it around and I send it that way, give me something that is now greater than negative 10. Something greater than negative 10 is negative 9. What is negative 3/5 times negative 9? It's going to be 5 2/5. Is that, go back to the beginning, is that less than 6? And the answer is yes. So when I multiply or divide by a negative number, I have got to take that sign and change it, or I'm going to lose the relationship of which side was bigger and which side was smaller. Okay. Now over here, because I am not multiplying or dividing by a negative, that stays. Nothing changes. Okay. So, you could almost look at this at the beginning and say, if I see a negative attached to my variable, I'm going to change the sign. Because if there's a negative attached to the variable, I'm ultimately going to be multiplying or dividing by that negative number. Here, I wasn't. So if I left this as 20, 30, and 40, oops, fail. Better turn those around because that's a negative. Okay, we're closed and going to the right. Like that. Got it. You gonna do that on your homework? Draw little stick figures like with a fist and then a hand pointing in one direction or the other. I wish. It's a valid statement. It's a valid statement. I don't disagree with it. All right. Last 4 and then we're done. Looking at these 4, how many require a sign change? How many require a sign change? Megan, how many do you think? 2. Which 2 are you changing the sign in? B and C. Okay. So take 30 seconds. These should not be hard to solve, but we should be mindful of B and C because there's a negative, but more importantly, there's a negative attached to the variable. Okay. So D has a negative in it, but not attached to the variable. What's that? For which one? That's multiplication. So you could just divide. It's okay. Sometimes I think we look at a certain idea and then we get stuck and that's all we think. Am I blocking your path? Sorry. Do you ever charge this thing at home or only here?
Well, that's what I got it out last night, and I had the cord plugged in the wall, but I forgot to plug it.
That was 100% a simple question. You got the.
Yeah, but then I went upstairs, brushed my teeth, and fell asleep.
Did you hear how simple the question was? Do you ever charge that thing at home or only here? And we got into him brushing his teeth and going upstairs and falling asleep. Like, simple yes would have been fine.
I like to use races for my answers.
Is that an English reference there? All right. Sometimes I wonder. Are you hiding? Okay. Got it. I won't call on you. Brooke, you got an answer to the first one? No. I'm just kidding. Well, you have an answer to one of them? Which one? I don't care. Okay. Okay. So here we're going to say that C is less than 12. Hunter, you got another one somewhere in there? Okay. All right. So if we divide both sides by -8, we are saying Q is greater than or equal to -17. Okay. Well, we'll just graph them like out loud. We won't actually graph them. Just saying what they are. Which one you got, Allison? Okay. So if we divide here, we're dividing by 15. That is not a sign change. Okay, because we did not divide by a negative number, so that would just be P is less than 4. And September, do you have the first one? So greater than or equal to? 5. Okay. All right, so if you were going to graph the first one, Faith, open or close circle pointing to the right or to the left? Close and to the right. Good. In the second one, open or closed pointing to the there. Okay, there we go. Yep, you're sitting in the front of the room. You want to turn around and see that nonsense. An open circle pointing to the left. And in the next one, it would be, I can't tell. Is that an open? Okay, and Kelsey fell out of her chair. She's trying to point to the wall. She couldn't get out of the way. All right, so that should be closed and to the right. And the last one would be open and to the left. All right, I apologize for everybody that had to listen to that and didn't get to see this craziness. So your homework tonight is a Google form. Okay, there are 10 questions. 10 questions? 15 questions? No more than 15, I'll guarantee you that. All right.